As a night shift nurse for the past 7 years, I have seen my fair share of strange occurrences in the 3 different nursing homes and hospitals I've worked in. I've encountered numerous inexplicable events. I'm sharing a couple of these incidents with you today, as they continue to haunt me, and I'm unable to forget them. Whether these were ghostly encounters or something else entirely, I'll let you be the judge. One night, I came on shift about 9 p.m. I passed the residents' dining room on the way to my locker and saw one of the long-time residents sitting there. To be honest, I didn't even stop to think why anyone was there that late, or how did he get there, or what's he doing there. I didn't stop to chat or even say hi. I just flashed him a quick smile of acknowledgement as I was late for handover and looked over to make sure he didn't need any help. He smiled back and waved as I carried on to the handover, just making a mental note to have one of the staff see him back to his room member and make sure he was okay. And of course, you already know what I'm about to say. The man had very unexpectedly passed away that day. So I tell myself maybe it was someone else I saw. Some of the residents looked similar and the lights were dimmed. Maybe I imagined it, and it was just a shadow. But the more I thought about it, the more I knew it was him. I even asked the staff and residents if anyone had been in the dining room that I could have mistaken for him. I checked the security cameras that cover the corridors and the first part of the dining room, but not the spot he was sitting. No wheelchair-bound residents anywhere near. It was really a strange place to see him, not just because the dining room was closed that time, and I've never seen a resident there before or since, but this particular resident didn't eat in the dining room. He ate with his wife in the smaller dining room in the Dementia wing. So of all places and times, it would be a silly place for me to trick myself into thinking he was there, and he had been fine. I mean, he had many problems, but he had been in the home for years, very stable, so it wasn't the case that I was thinking about him dying or anything. Another thing that only struck me later was his smile. It was such a short moment, but he smiled at me so happily and peacefully. I hadn't seen his face like that ever since when I knew him. It really was like he was hanging around to show us that he was happy and say his goodbyes or something. On another night, the eerie sound of buzzers ringing echoed through the halls multiple times in the early morning hours. Each time, we rushed to the rooms only to find the patients fast asleep or a patient who wasn't physically able to ring a buzzer. So at first we thought maybe it's just some crossed wires or something. Then the motion sensors kept going off. Some residents have them, so the staff knows when the person is getting out of bed, and the staff can attend to help them to and from the toilet or whatever, and prevent falls. So we attend there, and the person is asleep too. We thought maybe a confused resident is wandering and setting off other people's motion alarms and ringing their bells. The 3 of us staff split up to do a bed check and account for everyone. All asleep and accounted for. Spooky, but we shrugged it off and started our round, sticking together because, well, we are a bit spooked. And then other end of the home bells and motion sensors start going off. People who can't ring bells, and one motion sensor of a resident who was in hospital that night. So we tell ourselves it's a wandering resident. But then bells and sensors go off other ends of the building at the same time. Could we have missed 2 wanderers? And how could they get to each room so fast? Must be crossed wires. We were spending time chasing false bells and not knowing who needs us or not. So we decided to disconnect the offending bells that kept ringing false. Most were patients who weren't able to use a bell, so it wasn't taking away from them anything that they could use. And the motion sensors, well, they were going off at every few minutes, and we thought it best to turn them off as well and just keep an eye on everyone else closely. We switched them off, I think there were 5 or 6 bells and sensors, and for an hour, everything was fine, peaceful even. Then 2 of the bells went off again, ones we had disconnected. We had all been together every moment since we were a bit spooked, so we knew none of us had plugged bells back in secretly or anything. All of us went together to check it out, and the bells that we had unplugged and removed and wrapped the cord up and placed up high on top of the cupboard were now put right back, plugged in next to the patient's bed and fastened to the bed rail. If it had been just me, maybe I think perhaps I forgot to take this one out. But of 3 of us, the only 3 staff in the building, so I don't know. At the time, I thought maybe it was a staff member playing a joke. No one could get in the building without us letting them in overnight, so it meant someone would have to stay back from earlier in the day and hide for hours just to mess with us, and then not even enjoy it by jumping out and laughing at us. So I can't explain it, but I still get chills by thinking of that night. The other thing was another night. My colleague and I started our rounds in the dementia wing. The first patient we attended, an old lady, muttered something strange in her sleep. "Leave me alone. I'm sick of you people waking me up and asking me if I'm okay," she grumbled. We hadn't woken her up. We attended to her motion sensor and hadn't spoken to her at all that night. We assumed she had some confusion, so it wasn't that big of a deal. The bedbound man we attended next was usually a cheerful patient, but tonight he grumbled. "I'm sick of you girls. You just come in here asking if I was okay." It was strange, but we figured maybe he had overheard the first lady. But it wasn't until the next patient, a clear-minded individual on the opposite end of the ward, spoke up. "Why does that lady in the white dress keep opening my door and asking if I'm okay?" he exclaimed. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the strange occurrences. Had some staff member snuck in and was playing pranks on the patients? But the idea seemed preposterous, as if anyone would sneak in to turn patients and take them to the bathroom in an aged care home in the middle of the night. But what was even more strange was that 14 residents that night all reported a lady in a white dress waking them up and asking if they were okay. It was a mystery that left me feeling uneasy and definitely on edge. As I said in the beginning, I have encountered numerous inexplicable events in the last 7 years. I have caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, and every time I turned to look, I was convinced one of my colleagues were standing there. But as I focused my gaze, I realized they were at the other end of the building. That spooked me, but then I think maybe it's the light playing tricks. I tried to rationalize it as the light playing tricks on my eyes. But many times I felt like I wasn't alone. I never felt threatened, though. Someone once told me, the only people who should fear ghosts in an aged care are those who abuse patients. And I have to say, even though I was a bit spooked at the thought of someone or some spirit being in the building, which was supposed to be locked and secure, I never felt threatened. I always felt it was someone like the man I saw just saying bye, or some kind of nurse figure checking on patients. I've never felt it was a bad kind of thing, and still, I guess it spooked me. But I've always felt that the deceased people in the home were at peace, especially the ones who suffered a lot when they were alive. The places I worked were very, very respectful of the patients before and after they passed. We were to wash them and dress them and speak to them as if they were alive. When I first saw this, I honestly thought it was weird, but I kind of think now, maybe that's why there was this such kind feeling, peaceful one. I thought it would be kind of awkward to talk to a deceased person as if they were alive, but the first time it came very naturally, and whether I am open to ghosts or whatever else, there was a definite presence of a soul or something after the patients had passed, and it wasn't hard to talk to them at all. So I can't explain the things I saw, or heard or felt, and I can't tell you one way or the other if it was ghosts, or my imagination, or faulty bells, or someone playing a joke. But I definitely have felt the presence of residents after they have passed, something that lingers after the body has stopped functioning. And again, that's maybe in my head, but to me, I felt that very strongly.